Hello, Beatle people. Bungalow Craig here. Wanted to do an update and say happy anniversary a little bit early to the White Album. It's turning 50 years old, of course, this year in November. And I wanted to continue my series about the first pressings of these albums and records because it's important to me, and I'm sure it's important to a lot of people out there that want to collect the first pressing by the 50th anniversary. So just to continue on with this, I wanted to go over the UK album version on the left and the two US versions I have on the right. So we'll kind of go over and maybe some controversy or some confusion they have on the US numbering system. So we'll do that a little bit later. But I did want to shout out, if I had a long discussion with Frank Daniels about the US version of the White Album. If he's watching, I do want to give him a big, huge thank you and thumbs up to him. Very good guy to talk to about this stuff. So, all right, I'm going to show you my references. So the first one I'm going to reference is the Beatles for Sale on Parlophone Records, and that's by Bruce Spizers and Frank Daniels. And then the second one is Beatles on Apple by Bruce Spizers for the US versions. So let's go ahead and dive right into this. All right, to continue on, this is the UK White Album. It's definitely one of my cleaner White Albums that I have. And this is actually my number. Let's zoom down into that. It is 67,377. So this is actually mono. So the monos were only in the UK. They weren't in the US. So usually below 300,000 is going to be listed as a mono, and then anything above 300,000 is going to be as a stereo. There are some oddballs, like in the 600,000, that there are some mono covers and mono albums produced, but usually it's those kind of guidelines. And the way you can tell with the mono covers and versus the stereo, on the back, up in the corner, I could flip this around, but it's basically the same on the both sides. It's white, but there's going to be a stereo wording right there. If it's mono, it's not going to have stereo on it. So with this White Album that was issued, I'm not going to pull out everything because I'm betting a lot of people that have seen the White Album know what's in it. But I'm just, in case that you haven't, I'm just going to show it in my book here. So first, it was issued with a poster. Then the sleeves, or the records, were actually in with the UK. They were issued with two black inner sleeves that came with the album, and also were issued with portraits, as you can see. So, but the biggest thing to look for with the White Album, of course with all the innards and sleeves and stuff like that, is the first pressing labels. So the first pressing labels had the missing of the EMI on there, and that's how you can actually tell if it's a first pressing label or not. So it's going to be on the second side as well. Here in Bruce Spizers' book, you can see. I'm just going to show you the first label, and then here's mine again. As you can see, it's missing. The reason why I show you both sides is because you're going to want to, they mix and match the labels. So even though it has missing on one side, you're going to want to flip it over because it might be there on the second side. And this is what I'm talking about. You can see an EMI recording on both sides there, and then so they could mix and match the labels. So you're going to want to definitely flip it over and see. But that's the White Album, and I want to give a huge shout out to one of my best buddy here in the VC, the Vinyl Basement. Definitely check him out. He goes over a lot of the UK differences and similarities and stuff like that. It's really quite cool. A lot of information that he has. So when you have some time, definitely check him out. All right, let's go on to the US version. Okay, let's continue on. Here is my copies of the US version album. They're pretty low, but we'll go over those in a minute. What I wanted to start off with, since I didn't show the poster in the British version, I want to show it in the US because the US has some really kind of things you want to see for the first pressing poster as well. So here's the back side of the poster. See Honey Pie right over there. But what you're going to want to see as well, or what you can see, is see it says Apple Records. I'm sorry for the shaky cam here. But what happened on the second pressings of the poster, they've actually included 1968, so in the copyright. So instead of just saying Apple Records. So the first pressings have that. Second pressings will have the included 1968 on there. Second, I want to go over the stills. Now I'm not going to show you all four, but I'll just show you my favorite Beatle, which is Paul McCartney. Here's the Paul McCartney still, or the headshot, the mugshot. But there are ways to tell if you have a first pressing photos as well. And what you want to see is all the way down in the corner here. It says printed in USA. So on each one of the stills, or the mugshots, will have just, the first pressings will just have printed in USA. If you have anything written out about over here or on this border, like Apple copyright or anything like that, it is a second pressing and onward. Only first pressings only have, of the US version, have printed in USA. And what's cool, you could get lucky enough with the four stills to actually have a spacer. And so what happened was when they were putting the albums in, they had four, to know that they had four individual pictures signed by back to back, they put a spacer in. They thought that they needed to put the spacer in. And then they realized, why are you putting the spacer in? And so they took it out. But some of the early copies, and some, maybe even some of the later ones, have different kind of spacers. Now, this one is a yellower orange spacer. It's a very thin paper. But there are some that are blue and hard stock. This is a thin stock. There's yellow, like bright yellow, orange. I mean, there's a lot of them. So, but this is one of the spacers that came with it. So really kind of cool. All right, well, let's talk about the one thing I wanted, are very, very interested in. I'm sure you guys are too, are the number system in here. So the numbers, these are my numbers. So one of them is 14,808. That's actually a West Coast cover. This is an East Coast cover. So it's 1,389,040. This is actually a very low number as well. Well, you're probably saying, no, it's not. It's 1.38 million. But let's dive into that, because this is one of the first ones East Coast actually made. So here in Bruce Spizers Buy a Book, I actually want to go over some of the prefixes. So the first ones, let me see if I can get it without my shadow here across the book. Okay, that's better. So the first ones, there's a lot of number ones out there, especially like Ringo had one that was just sold for, I think it was over 650,000 pounds just recently. So there's a lot of number ones that they made. But that's an East Coast number one. Bruce Spicer wanted to show as an example. But what really starts it off is number, and I wrote it here, 26 to 590,000 were done by Burt Co. So these are the West Coast. These ones right here are actually the West Coast versions. And you can actually see that they had no, like the lower ones had only 1 0, but then they started putting a lot of zeros after them. And then they included like a little chubby A. So with that, those right there, that's actually the East Coast version, or excuse me, the West Coast. And then the second block, now these are just in blocks. I don't say first pressings or second pressings because these were all done at the same time. So when Capitol did this, and Apple, they actually divided them into blocks. So Capitol was very, very adamant about not reproducing numbers. So what happened was they divided it up into the blocks. So they said, hey, Burt Co. on the West Coast, they said, hey, you do this chunk. And then on Jacksonville, they said, hey, you do this chunk. And then the East Coast said, hey, why don't you do this chunk? Start at 1.38 million. So that's exactly what they did. So and they actually deemed it with a different kind of a prefix. So with the dot, with that number, it's going to be a Jacksonville pressing, and they usually range from 590,000 to 1.37 or so million. And then Queen's Litho started about 1.38 million to 2 million plus. Those would be considered the first pressings. And then the second pressings are these ones. So you have the one was the dot over here, and then you have the number. These two numbers are Queen's Litho, which is East Coast. This is a West Coast, and then to finish it off is a West Coast. And then after that, they didn't put numbers on the album. So that's how you tell. So with having those numbers, they're in blocks. That's where a lot of confusion comes, because I'm the same way. You want the lowest number possible, but the lowest numbers were only found on the West Coast side. But that doesn't mean that it was the first one produced. So having these two numbers. So here, this is a very, very low number for the West Coast. This is like one of the first ones to come out on the East Coast. So I always tell my wife is the best way to kind of know this is to kind of minus 1.38 million from the number. So really this was about the 9,440th one to come out. So which was really cool. So they're very, very low numbers on each side. So that's where I really wanted to go over that, because just because it's a low number, I mean, even though having the low number is really, really cool, this is a low number for the East Coast. So, but not only that, I mean, a lot of people talk about having like the numbers, but another thing you want to see is the labels. So these are the air labels. So if you look, you have all the songs, but John Lennon, supposedly it's John Lennon told Capitol that he noticed some misprints on the labels. So like right here, it's not called Bungalow Bill. It's supposed to be called, oh, that's the wrong one. So that is it's Bungalow Bill. So the on the misprints, on the regular ones, it's going to be the continuing story of Bungalow Bill. Let's see if I can get that really, really fast here for you guys. And then Obla Di Obla Da, if you see, it doesn't have any hyphens. So, oh, here we go. We got it back here. So see how it says the continuing story of Bungalow Bill? And then here it says Obla Di Obla Da has hyphens. So this would be the second. Now this is still a first pressing, because on the matrix it has a very low matrix number. But this is, they corrected the air. This one, as you can tell, this one's a East Coast version, so it doesn't have the air corrected, and it's before John noticed it. So those are some of the errors, and then on the other label is, you can see, because sometimes they're going to mix them up, so you have to check both the records. Here you have Revolution number 1, and then Revolution number 9. But the thing is where they noticed they had the extra number, and then Good Night was supposed to be separated. So here is the corrected version, where it says Revolution 1. Well, let's get into focus here. Revolution 1 and no number, and Revolution 9 no number, and then Good Night is separated. So those are the, sorry for the camera work here. It's a very big table that we need to go down and have all these on. So those are the mess ups. Here again is the mess ups. And you can definitely pause it, of course. And if you have any questions on the mess ups, or even the numbers and the White Album itself, you can definitely get in contact with me. I'd love to chat about it. It's one of, or not the favorite album of mine. Again, I love the other ones too, like Abbey Road and all those, but sometimes the White Album is just so, all this cool little information on it. So, all right, well, that is the White Album. I wanted to say again, happy 50th anniversary here on November 22nd of this year to the White Album. Love it. Hopefully you guys, it's a good video for you guys to kind of get your own copy, get the true first pressing of the copy of the White Album. So if you have any questions, please, again, there'll be a link to, you can comment below, but there will be a link. I found a website that will definitely help out some information, and I'll actually put a link into that. So if you can't buy the Bruce Spizers book, because it's not on digital format right now, you can definitely link to this website, and it'll kind of go what I went over really well. So, all right, well, take care, and if I'll hopefully see you next time. Peace out.